Andy, welcome to Mea Culpa. Good to have you back, my friend. So much going on. The hour goes by too quickly. Gonna jump straight into it. Both of us look exhausted. Our hair looks like shit, but that's besides the point. Look, let me ask
What?
Andy, let me ask you this question. Gotta always start off the right way. I want to start off with a really big picture here. You think, as I wrote in my Substack of today, you think Americans are really seeking a supreme leader? Or does it just feel that way because every single day Trump signs another executive order expanding presidential power while Republicans fall in line to kiss the ring? What's going on?
I think Americans, or at least half of the country, has lost its mind. We've seen that over the last decade. I think we have an interesting phenomenon taking place right now with Gavin Newsom and his considered to be his epic trolling. Although I think the backlash coming from Republicans is rather funny and ironic, given that they're so critical of what they consider to be conduct unbecoming for a governor, and at the same time, it's like, have you seen your president? What the shit he does on Twitter? And it's crazy to me, you know, that they're losing their shit over it. But I think that means it's effective.
You know, look, to my listeners who maybe don't know what Andy's talking about, what Gavin Newsom is doing is he's putting out these posts in all caps, basically parroting some of the things that Trump writes in his Truth Social posts that are obviously incredibly snarky towards the president. And so, yeah, there are a slew of Republicans that are offended. They are beyond offended. Not offended.
They're incredulous.
Yeah. But not offended when one of the Republicans, I forget who it is, like Osley or something like that, where he turned around and he wrote, he's putting before the House, when they come back to session, they want to push a bill that would give Trump the ability to run for a third term. Now, this to me, you want to talk about incredulous, goes against the Constitution, which I don't understand. Initially, Trump said he doesn't want. After speaking to Putin, allegedly Putin said that you should run for another term. In fact, there's actually merchandise that you could buy right now at the Trump presidential store, Trump 2028. We've heard it many, many times now from his people as if they are forecasting what he truly intends to do.
He said the quiet part out loud in the Oval Office when he was sitting with Zelenskyy. A reporter asked Zelenskyy if he would consider holding new elections, and Zelenskyy said, I would, but not during war. And Trump said, oh, so you don't have elections during a war. 3.5 years from now, we're going to have an election. So I guess no elections? Like, he literally is telegraphing not only what's in his mind, but given everything he's done so far in the last 7.5 months, we see exactly what he's doing to dismantle the democracy, how he's defying court orders, how he's sending troops into American cities, how he's calling up the National Guard, how he is executing executive orders that is complete and total autocratic overreach. This is only 7.5 months in. Yeah. So we have a lot to worry about because he's not fucking around. No, when he says it, it's not a joke. It's not a joke.
It's never a joke. And Donald's not a jokey kind of a guy. He's telling you what it is. He'll laugh about it because he knows that it's stirring people up. He does it for a reason, but it's also to let you know what's on his mind. But before I get back into this whole third term ambition, let me ask you this, though. When a sitting president bypasses Congress with executive orders, literally to change voting procedures or to alter federal enforcement, what does it say about the strength or the weaknesses of our system of checks and balances?
Well, we have to take with a grain of salt, as you know, what Trump says, because often there's two buckets with Trump, the bucket of reality and that which he can execute on, which is dangerous. And then there's just bluster, distraction, and things that are of lesser concern because he really doesn't have the authority to do certain things. So, for example, with banning mail-in voting, I mean, last time I checked, we don't live in a monarchy. We don't have a king. So, with the wave of a hand and the dashing of a pen, he can't get rid of mail-in voting on a state-by-state basis. Now, what he could do, which is maybe likely to happen on some level in red states because they're completely subservient to him, he might be effective there, but he can't just summarily issue a dictate that we're doing away with mail-in voting. You know, there are states' rights, and each state has its own constitution, its own election commission, election commissioners, election boards, etc., and they make their own rules when it comes to the election. So I think that falls into the category of blah, 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 blah.
Right. But didn't the same, for example, California, isn't it normally the governor who's supposed to empower the National Guard in the event of very specific issues that are taking place? Trump just walked all over that shit. He just put the National Guard there in Los Angeles in order to handle an ICE scenario. You know, the problem that I've always found is that people don't take Trump at his own word. We've watched that mistake happen time and time again, and he just does it. He thinks about nothing as it relates to consequence. He just wants to accomplish what he wants to accomplish. So if he turns around and says that I don't like voting machines, well, okay. What if hypothetically the voting machines are all used and connected to a mainframe system that is controlled by the federal government, right? Maybe through, I don't know, an agency. And then he turns around and he tells the agency, cut the cord. He'll do something. And anybody that thinks that he doesn't have the intention of winning this argument, including mail-in ballots, he wants to go only to watermark paper, because with watermark paper you can't forge that shit, right?
What is watermarked paper?
So it's funny that you may ask that. Going back to the olden days, there was very expensive paper that you used to type on when you had like a Smith Coronomatic machine. And a watermark paper, very much like if you have a bill today, you hold it up to the light and you see the watermark. In the bills, it happens to be the face of the president. On the watermark, it happened to have been the name of the paper company, right? That's a watermark. Why he's bringing up watermarks on ballots, I didn't know that ballots have watermarks, but suffice it to say, I get it. I get what he's trying to say, though. He's mixing apples and pineapples, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, they
but
both
here's
have
the
the word
problem. Here's the problem, and this happened to him last year. He doesn't understand, or he forgets that a good chunk of his base are older Americans, and they often mail in their votes. He was told this by his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, and others close to him, which is why we saw a reversal where he went from early in the campaign doing the same thing, mail-in voting is bad, blah, blah, blah. And then as the campaign approached, he completely flipped and was urging people to vote early, send in your mail-in. And I remember thinking, they're going, what's happening here? Like he went from I hate mail-in voting to get out there and send in your votes by mail. Also, however,
sure, let's not forget also, so with the military, you know, many of them vote also, especially those that are out of their state. But, you know, the funny thing is he keeps talking about how mail-in voting, somebody whispered into his ear clearly that Democrats do better with mail-in ballots than Republicans. And so one way to knock that down, right, the number of Democrats who would vote by mail-in, well, if they're not going to travel or they're not going to go to the, I don't know, to the ballot booth, well, okay, it's just a better opportunity for him or Republican members to be successful. I like how he turns around and says that the only way that Democrats can win is by cheating. What he's forgetting is over the past, say, 8 years, he's actually been successful now twice.
Yeah,
All
Democrats
right?
are the worst. They're the worst cheaters known to cheating.
Right? I mean, it's funny. It's exactly the opposite. And boy, if this is their cheating, they should go back to being legitimate. That's the way I see it. But
Exactly.
Can I jump back to that whole third term ambition?
Sure.
Because it's really a very scary prospect. Because again, we saw this Republican Congress member propose this legislation. I mean, I've never in my life thought I would see the day that a member of Congress would propose legislation that would allow a president to run for a third term. I mean, yes, we saw it with Truman because we were in a world war. He sees it very differently. Every day is a world war. How dangerous is it when the idea of shredding the Constitution gets openly entertained, literally, and I don't mean this figuratively, literally, on the House floor?
Look, I say this to you all the time. You know him better than most people on this planet. I just think he just likes to rile up people. I really do. And this is like, if there's like a top 10 list of things that I could just piss the shit out of independents, liberals, like this is number one on that list. Talk about a third term. It's also a distraction. I don't know if we're going to get into the Epstein thing, but there are people who haven't forgotten about the Epstein scandal, and they're called MAGA. Okay, the media has been thrown off the 24-hour news cycle because there's so many other things that have come up, basically his distractions. But to the folks at home who are MAGA, they've never watched MSNBC or CNN to begin with. So what is or isn't covered on those networks, it doesn't matter to them. So they're still walking around going, where are the files? You promised us the files. You control the White House, the Senate, the House. You claim you're innocent. You promised to take down the deep state of Democrats. Why aren't you doing it? There is no reason for him not to be doing it. And the truth is, the nanosecond Pam Bondi pointed to her desk and said, I have the files in the list right here. That nanosecond, nothing before that matters. Whether Democrats did or didn't release the files when they were in control, nothing matters because they elected him to do the opposite of what he told them Democrats weren't doing, right? So he can talk about Rosie O'Donnell. He could talk about all kinds of shit. He could talk about running for a third term. It doesn't matter because the people who that inner circle is fearing are feeling betrayed. They're not feeling it any less. They're not going like, oh, Rosie O'Donnell. I guess I'm not that concerned with the Epstein files anymore. Like that's not happening. And I talk to those people all the time. So it's a distraction on the news cycle. It's frustrating. It makes liberals' heads explode. He can't do this third term bullshit, but he can't. It's not going to happen. Besides,
do you think he's not going to run for a third term? Do you think that he's just going to step away? Or do you think that he's going to try to figure out a way how to run for a third term, claiming the way that the Constitution reads, it's somewhat ambiguous as to whether it's 2 consecutive terms or is it 2 terms in total? It's very, and then bring it to the Supreme Court.
The Constitution is clear. FDR had 4 terms. This law was enacted for a reason, so that doesn't happen again. So we have term limits for a reason.
I'm sorry. Did I say Truman before? I meant FDR.
Oh, maybe you did. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I probably did.
And so he could claim whatever he wants. But to me, there are 2 scenarios. One is likely and probable. Other scenario is possible, but less likely. The less likely one is, okay, he's already sent troops out on the streets of America. He's already sent the National Guard. We know his behavior is very autocratic. He's thumbing his nose at the courts. He's already declared several national emergencies, which we all know are bogus. The courts on the lower level have pushed him back a bit. The Supreme Court has flirted with the unitary executive theory. It has given him a lot of leeway in his quest to expand presidential power. It has given him damn near absolute immunity. That's a recipe for disaster. So an unlikely but possible scenario is that he does get us into some kind of war situation and says, hey, folks, we can't have an election during war. I'm suspending the midterms, or I'm suspending the presidential election, or canceling it.
Right. The only difference here, right? The only difference
Rudy
here is when
Rudy Giuliani did a grab for that after 9/11. So it is possible to go down that road. But I just wanted to say the other more likely scenario is that, as you and I both know, he's not a young man, right? He's not a healthy man. We know that now. And whatever health records have been publicized in the last several weeks, couple of months, we know that they are probably just the tip of the iceberg. So if Trump says, what I have is benign, there's a strong possibility it's way worse than that. He's tired and exhausted now. We know that his Republican brethren in Congress, they can't stand him. They're afraid of him, but they can't stand him. Independents have already bailed, right? That ship is left. He is cratering with independents. I just don't think he has it in him and or the health or the support of the electorate, which 49 point something percent only elected him last time in November.
I understand, but while he's not doing well in a national polling average, by the way, Democrats are doing worse. That's the thing that sort of scares the shit out of me. The same way that people talk, Trump has no shot. It's going to be a massive blue tidal wave in 2026. I'm not so certain. And I think people underestimate Trump on a daily basis. I really do. And that's why right now we have him as president of the United States. Oh, there's no way that he's going to win. Look at the enthusiasm. I've almost felt like Robert De Niro there. Enthusiasm, right? Right. I mean, coming out of the DNC convention in Chicago, I was there. I saw the crowd, I saw the energy, but we're preaching to a very small group. And worse than the small group, you had 77 million Americans, or 79 million Americans that chose not even to vote. They're not going to vote for Trump. They don't like him. But you know what? I don't like this black woman either. That's how they thought. So we're in for a real rough ride. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see the Democrat who's going to be leading the charge, because that's what they're looking for. That's what we're looking for. One person to ride in, shining armor on the stallion to save us all from the big bad wolf. And the more that people underestimate Trump, the more that he enjoys it, and the more that he sticks his middle finger, up. And how do I know that he's going to run? It's not just that he said it the other day when Zelenskyy and the EU members were there. He was touring a place that had a whole bunch of merchandise. Trump 2028 merchandise is already being sold. Now, some cynics like yourself may turn around and say, I just see this as a grift. I, who know him, and I will agree with you on that for sure, probably better than anyone on the planet, I see it as a calculated strategy to normalize the idea that Trump is going to run for a third term. In fact, if hypothetically he would win, I could actually see himself trying to make himself president for life.
Well, I just think that in order to make a grab like that and to try to be an autocrat and shatter democracy, you have to have the people behind you. He didn't have a majority of Americans in November.
No, but he certainly had more than Kamala.
Yes, but he ran in what we believe to be a fair and free democratic election. To stage the kind of coup that we've seen in throughout history, or to try to duplicate the kind of Turkey/Hungary-like autocracy that we see today, I just don't think he has the ability to do that. I really don't. I think he's trying like hell. I don't disagree that he won't try, but I think I think if he tried to steal a third term, which is that's what it would be. It wouldn't be like everyone in America agreed, Congress agreed, the courts agreed, everybody's on board. He would be trying to steal it. I don't think the electorate will tolerate that. I really don't. Maybe his fiercest MAGA cultish base would. Maybe 40%, 50%, 70% of that base would. But we're already seeing people peel off in MAGA. I think I think a lot of people, especially the independents, they're already tired of him. They want something else. And I don't think and you're right about Democrats, but I think if someone can just show the fight, and that's why I think Newsom is getting a lot of play, because while he's not the most ideal candidate, he does have attributes that I think are attractive to a lot of people. But to me, the game has changed. Trump has changed the game, whether we like it or not. We can't run like we ran campaigns against Ronald Reagan in the 80s. Those days are gone. You know, you look at Beto O'Rourke, how he goes out and talks, is F-bomb this, F-bomb that. That's the game now. And we need to put somebody up who has that kind of 2025 authenticity, who talks like one of us. In a sense, our version of Trump, without the crime, without the pathological lying, without the soulless grifting, all that, the cruelty. We need a legit, smart, qualified, capable candidate, but who is one of us. That's what the electorate has told us the last few years. They're tired of the stiff, over-consulted politicians who run campaigns like it was 40 years ago. And I think so far with his trolling, Gavin Newsom's having some fun. He's being tough. He's actually using his legislative arm in his state to counter the Texas redistricting scam. So it's not just tweeting; he's putting his tweets into action. And I dig what he's doing.
When I was 39, I spent a week in the ICU. The truth is, it was touch and go. And lying there, hooked up to machines, I couldn't stop thinking, what happens to my family if I don't make it out of here? I mean, that kind of moment, it changes you, because the truth is, life doesn't give you a warning. And the last thing I'd ever want is for my family to be worrying about how to pay the mortgage or tuition on top of losing me. And that's why I went with life insurance through Ethos. It's not the old school headache of paperwork and medical exams. It's 100% online. You just answer a few health questions. You can get a quote in as little as 10 minutes and even, get a load of this, even same-day coverage. And here's the surprising part. Some policies start at just $2 a day, billed monthly, and you can get up to $3 million in coverage. I mean, that's peace of mind at a price that makes sense. So protect your family with life insurance through Ethos and get your free quote at ethos.com/Cohen. That's ethos.com/Cohen. Go there now. Yeah, except here's the problem. Say whatever people want to say. When it comes to Trump, I think people sorely underestimate him. And that's the very first mistake that I think people make. The second mistake is made by Democrats. Hands down, solely by Democrats. And what's that mistake? Well, they turn around and they want to talk policy instead of the way you're describing. Just talk like the average person. The problem is, while they're talking policy and so on, nothing gets accomplished. If I hear one more fucking Hakeem Jeffries speech, if I have to listen to Cory Booker for one more time, if I have to listen to Chuck Schumer with his fake fucking outrage on everything, right? I'm gonna smash my own television. All right, which I won't do because it's expensive. But, you know, to replace it, I'm not doing it, but I would want to. I'm so sick of their fake performative outrage. How about just be authentic? Just come out there. We don't have anybody that actually speaks to the public, that speaks to whether you're independent, Democrat, and even to some of the Republicans that are just slightly left of center. We don't have that. Trump, on the other hand, forgetting about the fact that nothing that he's doing is legitimate. It's all executive order. It's all by wringing that pencil neck of Mike Johnson, forcing them all to capitulate, to bend the knee, to kiss the ring, to blow smoke up his ass, right? It's all that and more. But here's what people say. Democrats too. Democrats, independents, and most certainly Republicans. At least he's doing something. We don't fucking do anything. We talk. We proselytize. We get up behind the gilded fucking podium, and what do? We bang our hands. We talk about how the Constitution is being violated. Where's my Constitution? Here it is. That we're violating the Constitution of the United States. Lo and behold, how dare he? They've lasted 250 years, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to speak for 30 fucking hours on the floor. I'm going to hold up this one. I'm going to hold up that one. We're going to turn around and leave, for example, Texas, so that they can't gerrymander the state ultimately to come back after 2 weeks. And they walk in like Caesar had just conquered another territory. You went on fucking vacation for 2 weeks, paid for by J.B. Pritzker, and they're sitting there to a group of people, oh, thank you. They're waving their hand like in victory. There's no victory because Texas is going to gerrymander the state for their 5 seats. I mean, we're not doing anything other than talking. Trump, on the other hand, is actually doing shit, even though we don't like it.
Well, let's be realistic. Elections have consequences. We lost everything.
Yes, we did.
So we have no power. Trump has all the power. And thanks to his ass lickers in Congress and the Supreme Court, he has, to your point, even more power than he should have. So the scales are completely imbalanced. So that said, I and millions of other Democrats share your frustration. It's not easy to sit back, especially after we had 8 years of Obama and some congressional control, to sit back and watch this happening and feel utterly powerless. But there's sometimes the expression, give somebody some rope and they'll hang themselves. I think there's a degree of that happening. Trump's polling is underwater. He's like I said twice already, he's underwater. He's cratering with independents. Elections these days are won and lost on the margins. You can't lose the independents. So we could sit here and say, when is MAGA going to really die? When is this all? It doesn't matter.
Never.
If the Democrats hold independence, we win the next elections. So it's about focusing on how and when and where we can take our victories, be happy with them, do whatever we can now to gear up for the midterms, to start looking at having some kind of leader in place for 28, which is again why I get back to Newsom. I look at the other candidates. You mentioned Pritzker. There are all these guys. You had Cooper and Bashir and Shapiro and Whitmer and blah blah blah. There's a million of them. Where are they? They're not on my.
Well, I'll tell you.
They're not on my Twitter feed. They're not on my television. Fighting.
You know where
Trump.
they are? You know where they are? Nowhere. And that's the biggest problem. Right. And you know what?
But Newsom is not nowhere.
Well, excluding Newsom and excluding J.B. Pritzker, who's gotten himself out there somewhat. But here's the problem. J.B., Newsom, all the names, Whitmer, Shapiro, you name it. Makes no difference. We're preaching to our own choir. And here's what we learned from 2025. Our choir turned out to be smaller than theirs. What we need to do, people like yourself, Andy, people like myself, Midas Touch Network, Lincoln Project, guys like Lev and Malcolm Nance and, a bunch of other individuals who have real platforms. Don't get out and preach to the people that think the same as you. We need to get out there and preach to the Republicans. Go into the ruby red states. Where the fuck is Ken Martin, our head of the DNC? Set this up. Set up a bunch of town halls. You think I am afraid to go into ruby red district in Texas and turn around and say, okay, with all due respect, Texans, let me be very clear. All right. You watched as your lawmakers have now gone ahead and taken the magic Sharpie, and they've decided that they are now going to redraw your district. In fact, one of your district expands 400 miles. So you, sir, who's out there in the Texas oil fields, you are sharing a Congress member 400 miles away that's in town, like Austin. What do you, with that city dweller, have in common? And the answer is absolutely nothing.
Right.
But here's what they did. They turned around and they said, does it really matter what you think? Our job is just to get the vote in order to protect the president. By the way, president may not be doing something that's beneficial for you, because your member of Congress isn't going to be only concerned about you. They're going to be concerned about the city dweller who has a totally different ideology and mentality than you. They are redrawing your vote right out of the system. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that Democratic lawmakers are right now, forget about the fact that it's a Democrat, because it could easily be a Republican, are being forced to sign permission slips just to leave the chamber? One of them even is now locked inside because she has refused to sign it. Andy, let me ask you a question. Based on that alone, how close are we to authoritarian rule when even elected officials are treated like a bunch of misbehaving children?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one that people keep asking, but it harkens back to what I said a little while ago about taking our wins when and where we can get them. So, for example, we see the takeover in D.C., but Pam Bondi tried to appoint an emergency police commissioner. The court slapped that back. She withdrew that. That was a victory. A narrow one, but it was a victory. So it's not automatic that every time Trump tries to continue his autocratic march, that he's going to succeed. So what they're very smart and adept at doing is searching through 249 years of statutes and finding something that allows them to move the boundaries, move the goalposts.
Like the Alien Enemies Act.
Yes. But the courts pushed them back too and rewrote the parameters. You can't deny someone their due process, habeas corpus rights. So they're pushing, but we're still a democracy. And here, I don't want to harp on the Newsom thing, but to me, there's three reasons why what he's doing, his trolling, is so important. And the first one is he is saying to all of us with those tweets that we're not North Korea, we're not China, we're not Russia. We can publicly mock our president still and not be sent to some gulag in El Salvador or be killed. Okay, Trump's buddies, Kim Jong-un, Putin, Xi, you see what happens to the dissidents in those countries. They get poisoned and you never hear from them again. So that's number one. Number two is he's truly holding a mirror up to the insanity of Trump. That's what's driving the Republicans mad, because they're being forced to either accept what Newsom is doing, because they've been accepting Trump doing it for years, or they have to lash out and pretend that only Newsom is doing it. I mean, like Dana Perino on Fox yesterday, I think it was. She's like, my God, if I was his wife, I would tell him, you look pathetic. Well, what if you were Melania? Would you be telling him? Because Trump does it way more, has done it for much longer, and he's actually in the Oval Office, okay, doing that insane shit. But right. what Newsom is doing is holding up a mirror to it. And the third thing, which I've sort of lost my train of thought, the third thing, what was the third thing? Anyway, I'll come back to it. But and just like with the Democrats in Texas, there was a reason for them going away for 2 weeks, because it forced a national conversation about this, about election stealing. And I don't doubt that in those 2 weeks, there are a lot of independents down in Texas, maybe even some really moderate Republicans, who are like, I don't like this shit.
Ha! You just answered what I was just saying. That's who you, Andy Ostroy, That's who Michael Cohen, that's who Midas touched. That's who, guys like Lev or Malcolm Nance or, Don Lemon. That's who we need to bring back into the fold, to say, I don't want you, Republican or independent, to switch your party affiliation. I just want you to acknowledge that right now, our tripartite system of government its head is in the guillotine. And unless you turn around and do something you probably never have done before, you will suffer the consequences, no different than you are suffering right now, thanks to tariffs. And anybody that's not going to turn around and tell you that consumers pay tariffs or that tariffs are taxes is lying to you. Because all you need to do is go to your local Walmart, Costco, Myers, wherever your big box store is, buy a bunch of things, take a look at your receipt, and it's like another mortgage, right? And it wasn't that way before. So understand, we're just telling you the truth. Everything that Trump does not have to be touted as the greatest thing ever. It's time to take off your rose glasses, all right, and see what's really going on.
Yeah, and you mentioned who's on the bench in the Democratic Party down in Texas. James Tallarico, he's a state legislator. That dude is amazing. So who knows what's going to happen in the next 3.5 years with him? He's a moderate. He's a family man, faith-based guy. Like, he has all those attributes of who the party continues to need to speak to that it may have lost over the years, and he's gaining a lot of traction. I think there are people out there like him. Often in elections, people come out of nowhere. Bill Clinton kind of came out of nowhere. Obama kind of came out of nowhere. It's not the people who present themselves day one as the quote unquote possible front runners. So who knows what's going to happen these next 3.5 years? But I'm more concerned with who it ultimately will be from the point of view of what I said before. We need someone with more of the attitude. I'm not saying Beto O'Rourke himself or Gavin Newsom himself, but someone who has adapted their presentation to a much more fuck it attitude. Fuck it. Literally, like Beto O'Rourke says, literally, fuck it. Like, he's not afraid to talk like that. And that's what people are looking for today. If I asked you, what do you think is the one word that a lot of voters use when they say, this is what I want in a candidate on both sides, the right and left? What would you think a word like that might be?
Authentic.
That's one word for sure. Another word is disruptor.
Strength.
But disruptor.
A disruptor, absolutely.
Yeah, I've talked to people in MAGA who, they love Trump, they also love Bernie Sanders. And I'm like, what? And then they explain it and they go, yeah, makes a lot of sense. So if you disrupt, and that's what Gavin Newsom is doing, he's just playing a different game right now that we've not seen before. And it's just interesting. Where it goes, I don't know. I don't think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's stupid. I think it's really important what he's doing.
See, what I want to see fellow influencers like us, like others, go into these red and purple districts, talk about the gerrymandering, the Texas carve-out, where they figured out how to grab 5 seats because they're concerned that the 2026 midterm was not going to go Republican, and explain to them that that specific act, that first act by Texas in doing this, all to kiss the ass of the supreme leader, should make you want to stop looking at this issue as political maneuvering and start looking at it as an authoritarian consolidation of power. And maybe, yes, I would ask the audience, every single one of you, stand up. Who here wants to anoint a king of the United States of America? If you don't like the word king, how about monarch? If you don't like the word monarch, how about supreme leader or dictator or Führer? What word? I don't care. How many of you want that? To those of you that do, please sit down. Chances are you'll have nobody sitting down. That's great. each and every one of you standing up, you need to stand up and you need to walk over to the ballot box and make sure that you vote for anybody, anyone, other than the person that's looking for that authoritarian consolidation of power for themselves. Because that's what we're seeing. That, my friends, is what Project 2025. While you're all standing, let me ask you another quick question. How many of you have actually read at least 5 pages of the 921-page manifesto known as Project 2025? Not asking you whether or not you've heard of it, whether or not you've listened to other people talk about it. And be honest, how many of you have read at least 5 pages of it? And to those of you that have, sit down, right? I bet you nobody sits down again. This is the problem. If you listen to Fox News, you think Project 2025 is the next coming of the Bible. It's not. It's an authoritarian power grab. That's the way somebody has to go there and make them start to think, open up their synapses in their brain, and that they get to hear a different perspective. And then use your daily activities, use what you know in your own personal life to validate what it is that I'm telling you. And if it doesn't validate, vote for the authoritarian. I don't care. I want you to know that this is the truth.
Well, look, you're hitting on something that is really important ultimately, and that is, what do the American people want? What are the American people willing to do? We're seeing millions of people out in the streets protesting. It's only 7.5 months into this guy's second term. I don't think the American people are going to stand for the kind of shit he wants to bring to this country. I just don't. So that doesn't mean things don't get ugly. But there's, it's like in business, you say there's deal killers and then there's ugly. Ugly is sitting in a conference room for 20 hours, beating the shit out of each other. Everybody walks out miserable, but you got a deal. A deal killer is people walk out after 5 minutes and nothing gets done. He's ugly. What he's doing is ugly. What he is perpetrating on the American people, on our democracy, the stains on our Constitution, the attacks on our rule of law, it is all ugly. But I do believe in this country. I do believe that a majority of our citizens are good, decent people who respect the Constitution and the rule of law. I see how people are protesting. That's only going to increase as his threats perhaps get more intensified and real and dangerous. Am I saying there will be a civil war? I don't think there will be that kind of thing.
I do.
There might be. It depends how far he pushes things. If he says, oh, by the way, tomorrow's midterm elections are off, you might have some serious violence in the streets. But I think by and large, when you were brought into power again with a percentage of the vote of less than 50%, there's not a whole lot of currency you really have. He likes to claim about, he had a big mandate, he had this, he had that, I won all the swing states. He didn't win jack shit more than about a point or a point and a half. So he's got a very slim margin.
You know what? I hear you. He still won.
Of course he won.
At the end of the day, say
but
what,
there's no mandate.
People can say that all the time. Maybe he's not a mandate. He still won. And that just goes to show you that neither side had the mandate. But I do want to ask you this question, right? Because I often think about it. What is it that's driving the psychology of this authoritarianism, of this authoritarian desire? Is it fear that's driving this? Fear of chaos? Is it resentment? The desire to scapegoat minorities or your opponent? You ever fall in love with a piece of furniture online? You see a couch, a lamp, a rug, and for a second you're picturing literally how perfect it'll look in your place until you see the price tag. Yeah, I've been there. We've all been there. 1 second I'm redecorating. The next I'm asking if this couch also comes with a small condo in Miami. And that's when I found dupe.com. And let me tell you, it's a total game changer. Here's how it works. You just type dupe.com/ before any product link, and instantly it pulls up the exact same style, sometimes the exact same piece for way less. I mean, we're talking 60, 70, even 80% less. And here's the kicker. It's not knockoffs. Most of this stuff, it comes out of the same factories. The brands, what do? They just slap their label on it and jack up the price. Dupe covers more than furniture too. It covers fashion, shoes, jewelry. I even found a rug that I've been eyeing for months at a price that didn't make me question all my life choices. And by the way, it's free. No sign up, no nonsense. They've got an app, a browser extension, and it couldn't be easier. So stop wasting money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today. Your wallet will thank you, and hey, you'll finally have that living room everyone envies. I'm trying to figure out what's really fueling this authoritarian appetite in America, because just look at our history. We've actually never had this before. The last time we had it was George Washington, 250 years ago.
Yeah, look, the answer is yes. All of the above. And
I'm glad I have you on the show,
well,
Andy. Now enhance that
I'm
answer.
always full of brilliant insights. Look, this gets back to my contention as to what and who Trump's base is. People talk about his base all the time like it's this big monolithic group. His base, to me, is everyone who voted for him. That's the Marjorie Taylor Greene crazies to the surgeon in New Jersey who just wants lower taxes, and everybody in between. So there are people who want a scapegoat. There are people who want, a daddy. We see them. Daddy's home. Like, what the fuck? Daddy? Seriously? Right? You're calling him daddy? You got some serious problems. And Trump is the least of them. And so everybody's got their own reason. But in that massive group of base, there are pockets of people who thought they wanted something and now realizing this is not what they wanted, or this is not what they voted for. We're hearing it on the immigration level. We're hearing it on the weaponization of the DOJ level. We're hearing it on various levels. When you see little kids being ripped away from their parents on the streets, people voted for strong borders. They voted for let's round up the criminals. Yeah, I'm all for that, and I'm a liberal. What I'm not for is just racially profiling truck drivers at a red light and beating the shit out of him in the middle of the street just because he's brown and you think he might be an undocumented immigrant. And I'm not alone in that. I have people on the other side of the aisle who agree with me and you on that. And so I think there's a little bit of everything. Trump gave a little bit of something for everybody, okay? And he's lost pockets of that base. So again, it's only 7.5 months in. A little more than 200 days. He likes to say he's the greatest, most successful president in history, but the numbers contradict that. He is.
Are you trying to say he's?
Yes,
not?
I'm saying he's wildly unpopular,
all right.
And he's got 3.5 years left, and it's only getting worse with him. It never gets better. There's never going to be that day where people go, you know what? I thought this guy was a dick, but I really like him. That's not. I thought he was self-serving, but he's really altruistic. That's not happening. It's only going to get more chaotic, more dangerous.
I actually was thinking about an answer to my own question that I just posed to you. And I think that the answer is actually simplistic in nature, right? If you think about democracy and the 250 years and the 46 presidents, himself included, so 45 other presidents before him, something that I think we can all acknowledge, that democracy is messy, that democracy is slow.
It's unfair.
That democracy requires compromise and is unfair. Whereas autocracy, it's really simple. It's one man decides, everyone else shuts the fuck up. And that, to me, is somewhere that there's this very large group of Americans that are like, yeah, but at least we'll get shit done. Trump said he was going to stop border crossing. Fucking A, he did it. He turned around and he said that he was going to load up LA because LA is a fucking crime zone, as is, DC. By the way, I lived in DC for 4 years. Let me be very clear. Yeah, you have issues. By the way, you go up into the Bronx, got the same issues. Go to Queens, got the same issues. Oh my God, we had a shooting on 52nd Street or 54th Street and Park Avenue, for God's sakes, right? I mean, shit happens everywhere because America is a fucking gun crazy country. But look, let me put that because the hour goes by too quick. And I have one last question for you. It's provocative. It's thought provoking here. I always talk about.
Yes, I love Coldplay.
Yeah, there you go. There's obviously a very wide acceptance of things right now by way too many Americans, like federalized police, like locked up lawmakers in chambers. I can't tell you the number of people that think it's fucking hysterical that they have her locked up in there. She needed like a bathroom hall pass, right? Or even the conversation, the notion of these third-term proposals, the merchandise. They think this is the funniest shit ever, as if the presidency and a Saturday Night Live skit should be one and the same. Andy, question I want to ask you is, you believe America can still reclaim its democratic norms, or do you think that we've just already crossed the point of no return?
I think it's both. I think some things can easily get reversed. New president comes in, Democrat reverses all the executive orders that are draconian. But there are other things like our standing in the world, the trust that we have with our partners, our allies, the perception that America is a safe haven for foreign investment, that we're consistently stable, that our stock and bond markets are stable and secure. The things like that, our NATO partners, what do they think of us long term? Yeah, a new president, Democrat, comes in and says, hey, I'm with you. You fuck with NATO, Article 5 gets pulled, we send in the troops. Yeah, well, that's what the other guy said, and then he said he wouldn't, and blah, blah, blah. And so I think it's a hodgepodge. I think, unfortunately, look, we can take back the board of the Kennedy Center. We could do that in 24 hours, right? Like, there are things like that we can right the wrongs. We can get the norms back. But there are other things like the gutting of certain agencies, all the people that have been fired, that we can't possibly hire them back and hire people back as quickly as would be needed, whether it's USAID or, other, the victims of the Doge cuts. That's a hardship. The HHS, CDC, all the cuts there, all the brilliant scientists that we're losing. The attacks on the universities. There are things that are changed. The law firms, the perceptions about the firewalls between major law firms and the U.S. government. You have law firms that are suing the government. Well, how is that going to be working from now on when a lot of law firms are afraid of the U.S. government?
Sure.
So it's a hodgepodge. There's no clear answer to any of this stuff. Americans just have to keep fighting, keep believing in America, and do whatever we can, which is to spread our voices and vote when it's time to vote.
And that's why I say, Andy, you and I got to get also, along with a couple of other guys, onto the road. We got to hit the red. We got to hit the red districts and the purple districts. Let's do it. We have to expand. We must expand the base. Do the town halls. Like I was laughing my ass off. I watched the Elise Stefanik the other day. Got the shit boot out of her, right? And she deserved it because what she was saying it's not worthy of an applause. I want to go there. And I'm not looking for applause. I'm looking to provide them with a reality. I don't want you to take my word for it. Just do a scintilla of your own homework. Just do the most minute investigatory work so that you understand where you stand. And where you stand is not alongside the Mar-a-Lago billionaire class. All right? The only people that are going to get kicked in the ass is you. And if you're okay with that, I'm okay with it. You vote that way. But if you don't want to get kicked in the ass, here's a different perspective. Andy, so great seeing you, my brother. Appreciate you big time. We got to get onto the road. Help me to set that up. We'll go everywhere. We'll just go everywhere. We'll start with New York, with Long Island. We'll work our way up to Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. We'll go to Vermont. We'll go everywhere. How's that?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Deal. I'll see you soon,
Thanks for
my
having
brother.
me. Take care.
You got it.